see Kristen back there, I see Brian, I see smiling faces everywhere I look.
Romper, stomper, bumper, smile.
Smile,
Somebody got
Romper room?
it. There you go.
Looking in the mirror.
Through the text, right?
There's a little Tommy man here. I do remember Romper Room. I'm old enough to remember Romper Room. Who doesn't remember Romper Room? Raise your right hand.
I don't know what you're talking about.
Whippersnappers.
Finally, I'm young enough to not remember something you guys do. That's cool.
Yeah, I kind of phased right out there, yeah. A lot of us were named from that mirror. You know that? When we were born and our siblings were already old enough to watch TV in the morning, and that mirror is up there, and all of a sudden this lady's naming off names. I was surprised how many of my friends were named when their folks heard the name on Romper Room.
Get out of it.
We had one that was named William Joseph James Robert. And I'll call him Billy Joe Jim Bob. What a good day, huh? The humidity's up, the temperature's coming up, the sun is finally burning off the humidity this morning, the fog that was out there this morning. And Susan made me me drive to town with my lights on. I was the only one on the road. So, but I did it for her.
Could see you.
I did it
Better
for her.
safe than sorry.
That's what she
Because
said.
she cares.
Evidently, that's what.
It was
women
my
say.
Jeep or my vehicle.
Oh,
She cares about her vehicle.
that's what it was. That's what it was. Because I'm okay. You know, a lot of times as long as there's rumble strips, I can drive by braille. You know, so it works.
But your dogs understand.
Okay, that'll work too, but anyway, it's a working day, had a great time at the fair. Watched Sarah, Bob's daughter, in the competition. She rode English, she rode Western, and so I got to watch some of the competition there. Told her I'd be there, so it was fun, it was good. She did good, she won a couple classes. She's very, very good, very good. I can see the confidence. When she's around here, a lot of times she's very shy acting. She's very confident on a horse. Yeah, very good. Anyway, good day. Let's ask the Lord to join us. Father, we thank you and praise you for your love. We thank you and praise you for a safe fair this year. God, now that just marks the coming of fall, the coming of harvest, the coming of the colors, the coming of things getting ready to go to sleep. And Father, in this time right now, God, I pray that you would help us to reach out into our community, to those who are ready for picking. God, that you would just come and help us to be better servants, better disciples, better witnesses for Christ, Lord, in our lives, that you might be glorified. Come be with us this morning. May we know your Spirit is here and dwelling with us. May you also be with Pastor Bob this morning as he brings the message, and may your blessings and anointing be upon him and the words he speaks. And those that are not here, God, we lift them to you for heartfelt prayer, God, that you might do good for them, Lord. And I will just thank you and praise you in Jesus' name. Amen.
Count the stars and you call them sent them some money from.
You're such a blessing in so many ways, and this is from CEF. We as a church made a nice contribution to them, and so they sent a note of thanks. It says, "Dear friends, what a gift. Thank you so much. It's a wonderful blessing. Clubs will begin soon, and what a joy to share God's love. Thank you, thank you. Keep praying, please. We need teachers, helpers, monthly support, prayer partners. God bless you for helping us, the CEF committee."
I got an email from Sean also.
Did you? Okay. So, did anybody stop and say hi? I talked with him for 10-15 minutes there at CEF this year at the fair. He spotted me before I recognized him and wanted to say thanks and make sure to tell you all thanks. So I'm glad he sent the card too, because I forgot. That's just who I am.
We know.
That's why I have two shoes, so I'll remember which one is the left. Okay. And I see it says Don/Mary, somebody up here.
Mary Lou Hannigan.
Hannigan?
Hannigan.
Hannigan.
Yeah. Mary Lou.
Mary Lou.
Don. Don's in the hospital. He's been there for over a month now. Had a heart attack and a stroke. Just not doing real well. Recovery has been a long, hard process.
Okay.
He's in rehab right now, which is a step up from where he was.
Okay.
He was my sixth grade teacher.
Was he? Yeah.
My mom's back in the hospital. Friday night, we were at Tractor Pulls and Susan's phone started ringing. I left my phone at the house, and so I ran outside the grandstands with Susan's phone and tried to call Mom back, and couldn't get through to her. Finally, Cindy called me and said she'd just hung up with Mom, and Mom's got bowel blockage again. It's been, what, probably 10, 12 years back, maybe more than that.
She's been in the hospital
And
probably
she had
times.
an intestinal hernia, and they went in with this mesh and did the repair, and it has done nothing but caused bowel obstruction ever since then. So she's put up with it. She's had 2 surgeries already and been in the hospital probably 8 times.
At least. Yeah.
At
it's
least
6 to 8, something like
once
that.
a year she's in the hospital over this. And so she's over at Shelby in the hospital, and we're trying to get things to function and flow through her again. So it doesn't look like she'll have to go through surgery this time, but it's inevitable that at some point they will have to go out or go in, and in order to remove it, they've got to take out part of her intestines. So, and she's trying not to let that happen.
Tom, have you heard anything about Chris DeHaan's nephew? Did you guys get a, well, I'm assuming it was Chris. Linda Breeds put it on the email prayer chain that her mail lady Chris, and I'm assuming that's Chris DeHaan.
Yeah.
Her nephew was the one that got thrown from his horse at the fair. Yeah. Have you heard anything about how he's doing?
Yeah, he had several fractures in his spine, his vertebrae.
How old?
Yeah, he's doing
This
fine.
fair?
He didn't.
Yeah.
That would be her grandson.
Oh, I thought it was nephew. Okay.
Peter.
Grandson?
Yeah, Mark, had him officer,
Yeah.
Shannon County. Mark and Mary had him as a child.
Okay.
He's gonna be
Brandon.
fine.
Brandon.
There was
He's gonna be
no
fine? Okay.
damage to the spinal cord, so that's
Good.
what I was worried about. So he's fine. It's gonna be a while before they can get the vertebrae healed up.
Is he in any sports?
I don't know.
Not now.
Yeah, I know. It sounds-
Better not.
Yeah,
Danielle.
Just prayer for some friends, June and Kirk, Francis is their last name. They're a college friend of Dort's, and they're just really good people. I think he had a stroke. This was a good couple of months back. He was in the hospital, finally went to rehab. He's just also just not, it's very slow recovery. And they had to move to an apartment that was wheelchair accessible and such. So she's working on that. And she's just got a lot of stress between work and trying to figure out everything for them. And so just prayers for continued healing for him and just relief for her. I mean, she's just been going nonstop, trying to take care of him and everything.
It's not easy being a caregiver.
No. And that's what she's trying to look into is, figuring out if they can even, where she can be this full-time caregiver. So, just I know God has it all planned and she needs some peace, that it's all gonna work out. Prayers for ex-coworker, her name's Jamie. She had some type of nasal surgery and it's not healing properly, so she had to do, I guess, another procedure. So just prayer for healing for that. My mom asked for some prayers. She has a potluck at the village to go to today and to meet new people, and she's nervous, so she's praying that her nerves won't make her uptight and that she'll be able to meet new people, I think that's it. I'll remember later.
Okay. And Alex.
My panic attacks have been coming back way worse than they were before. So just pray that I can get that figured out because it's affecting work. And I think it's because my last work week was 79.5 hours. So, and then I'm also trying to juggle my house life and family life and friend life. And so just pray that it's not all the stress that's doing it, that it's something that I can figure out. Because I've been having panic attacks and I know why, but my last one I just had no idea why, and I couldn't get out of it. So pray that they go away soon because I want to live.
Stress and being very tired play a big role.
Shane has shoulder surgery on Friday. He's got some stuff all tore up in there, and they're going to try to put him back together again. It's the opposite shoulder from what he hurt a couple of years ago. And then it's a 6-week recovery time. So.
Nancy.
Let's pray for Friends Sunday. That we really make an effort to make those invitations and
September 16th.
I know there's a lot of brokenness and this isn't a perfect world, but our God is perfect. And if we sat and counted all our blessings, we'd be here a long time. So I just want to praise God for who He is and the very life He gave us, even though there's struggles in it. There's a lot of good stuff too.
My brother Ron, that lost his wife a year and a half ago, he has decided to sell his house. I'm thankful that he waited at least a year to decide that. But he's in the process of going through everything, and he's got it through a realtor. His plan is to get a motorhome and kind of travel with the weather. But he's still really lost. But I'm glad he's made this decision. It's just really hard on him as he goes through. He keeps finding boxes of things that...
Have ghosts in.
Yeah.
I think my granddad hurts whatever that is.
You can do that all you want. I'm just glad you're not in the band, okay?
And what?
In the band. Danielle.
Just prayers for Tony and Sharon.
Yeah.
I guess they're struggling. I don't know what's going on. They're just stuff I've seen on Facebook and with her at least. And
Did they move?
I don't know. I think so, but I
It
don't
doesn't
know.
look like anybody's in the house.
Yeah. They're struggling.
Yeah, just pray for them wherever they are.
Yeah.
Okay. God of heaven and God of the universe, God of us, I thank you. I come to you with a heart that just feels for these people, God, that have been spoken of, God, and I pray, Father, you know who they are. You know every instance, God. And so, God, I pray for these instances to be revealed to them, that they would also recognize you working in their lives, God. God, I just want to take the time to say thank you and praise you, Father, for a wonderful, wonderful year, for a wonderful church family, for a wonderful wife. And I just thank you and praise you, God, for the friends that I've been able to make contact with again this year through class reunion, family reunion, the fair, God, just even being here at church, God, and seeing old friends, Father. And I thank you and praise you, Lord. God, I want to lift up to you Tony and Sharon this morning, God, and in the instances they're in right now. I pray for your hand upon them. Help them. Help them find you, Lord. Help them want to be one and one with you, Lord. And I just thank you and praise you. I just ask that Tony's stumbling can be healed, that he would stop stumbling backwards, that he would find you in his heart and then hold fast, Lord. I want to lift up to you Don and Mary Lou. And Don having a stroke, I just ask for you to come down and touch him and heal him, Father, heal his body. Give him his strength that he would need. I feel sorry for people. I feel for people that have suffered stroke and are not the whole being anymore and have limitations. And so, God, I lift them to you, Lord. I lift up my mom to you and ask that you can bring a solution to her medical problem, Lord, with this mesh that they have used and seems to keep reoccurring in problems, Lord. I also want to lift up to you Brandon and ask for your blessings and healing upon his body after falling off a horse, Lord. May he heal with no residing injuries, God, that you would make a full recovery to it. I want to lift up June and Kirk to you, and I just pray, God, as Kirk continues to heal from a stroke, Father, that you would give him a complete recovery also. I lift up Jamie to you, God, and ask for you to also just reach down and touch her. I lift up Danielle's mom and the nerves and panic attacks that she feels, Lord, and I just pray that you would give her confidence in herself, confidence in making new friends, confidence in her life and who she is, God. And I just thank you and praise you, Father. Lord, I just want to lift Alex to you right now also with panic attacks. And I ask, God, that you would just reach down from heaven and touch her and give her confidence as to who she is and how confident she can be in every situation. She's a strong woman. I lift up Shane and his shoulder surgery coming up, God, that you would be there and that you would guide the physicians, Lord. And I pray also for Brother Ron out in Washington, Father, as he's going through things and keeps coming across old memories, Father, that you would be there and comfort him. Help him to make this decision and stick by it, Lord. If this be your plan for him, I just pray that he would lean stronger on you, walk stronger side by side with you, Father, and be able to go on with his life. I thank you for the couples that are represented here, God, and I pray for you to be the strength in our relationships together, God, that you would be with us in all circumstances. Help us to find answers together, Lord, and help us to find happiness in life. And I thank you and I praise you for the love, the gifts, the blessings you bestow upon us. I thank you for correcting us. I thank you for leading us and guiding us. Bless you, Father. Now as Pastor Bob comes, I ask for your anointing upon him. Bless the words he speaks, and may our hearts and our souls be receptive. I thank you and praise you, asking this of you this day in Jesus' name. Amen.
I didn't do that. Well, I think that's my cordless. It must be.
It's really high.
Don't know why it's so hot, but did Carlos use it last week?
No,
Didn't, so
well, he did the second service.
he did in second service? Well, somebody must have turned him way up.
Way up.
Okay. Yeah, don't forget Friends Day, September 16th. We've got a bunch of these little cards on the welcome table at the back. Pick one up. Pick up a couple. Pick up 3 or 4. And you can use those to invite somebody. You can use them to remember to pray. That's extremely important. The whole purpose of Friends Day, it's not just church growth, although we want to bring more people in and have a big crowd. That's what we're going to do. But the whole purpose is that on Friends Day, we will present a very simple, clear explanation of the gospel, and to give people an invitation, a chance to respond to it. Now, you can tell your friend that we won't embarrass them, we won't do anything that will, make them feel funny or bad, or they don't have to stand up, they don't have to come forward. We won't do anything like that to embarrass them. A lot of people are afraid to come to church because, everybody will see me, or there's just all kinds of excuses and reasons. So we want to take as many of those away as possible. But we also want to present just a clear explanation of the gospel. So if you have somebody, you know somebody that needs to hear this, doesn't understand it, or if they do, they've never made a response, this is the perfect chance. This is the time to do it. So September 16th is a Friends Day. We'll have a cookout right after the second service, and we're also we're planning to dedicate the new fellowship hall. We're still waiting on the final inspections. This is not Randy. Randy's not holding us up. It's the electrical inspector. So we got to wait for him to make his final inspection so Randy can put the final stamp on it, and then we can cut the ribbon and move into the new fellowship hall. So we hope to do that on September 16th as well. So pray for that. Pray that it will happen in good timing. Okay, today I'm talking about creation and creationism. You know what creationism is? It's the theory, it's the belief that God created the universe, or that there is a designer behind creation that made it all happen. And I want to talk about this today and even next Sunday, because we're going back to school, right? It's back to school time. And schools, this is what they have to teach. I'm not sure why they have to, other than maybe the courts have dictated it, but they cannot, or refuse, most of them just simply refuse to teach any kind of creation theory. And so the only thing that's left, if you take God out, you have to go back to evolution theory, at least evolutionism. And so it's often taught as if that is the proven fact and scientific way to see the universe. But we are finding that science has less and less to do with that. That it's really a philosophy. It's really a worldview. It's just a mindset that says there can't be a God, or I don't want there to be a God. And that's usually what it comes down to. And it's become the official stance of our education system. There just can't be a God, because we can explain it all scientifically without mentioning God. So I want to address that so that we can engage that mindset in a better way, and have some ammunition to talk about it, and even to talk scientifically. So let me start with just a real quick history. I hope I can get through this quick, because I got 3 good points after this. This is pure introduction. But this all started, evolution theory began in the late 1800s, with Charles Darwin and his book. And suddenly scientists were able to explain the universe and all of creation without mentioning a creator. And it just suddenly they were able to do it scientifically, and they started to talk as if this is the proven fact and this is what science tells us. Well, the church reacted to that in the early 1900s and 1920s, right around then. The church did what, I would say it's a very predictable move that they made, but it was the wrong move. They said, and this sounds good, but the church began to adopt what is called fundamentalism. Fundamentalism says, we don't care what science can prove or disprove. We will still believe the Bible. Now that sounds good, doesn't it? You probably would even want to say, oh, I believe that too. I don't care what science says. I will believe in God. I believe in the Bible. Well, the problem is that the church fell into a trap. The trap of separating science from the Bible. And science is on one side and the Bible is on the other side. And if I have to choose between the two, I will choose the Bible. Was this the Bible? I forget which one I held up. The Bible versus science. And we fell into the trap of believing or letting them set the arguments and say that, okay, on one side is the Bible and on the other side is scientific truth. Uh-oh. Now we're in trouble because we end up looking stupid and looking silly because, we're willing to believe a lie. Even if science can prove that the Bible is wrong, we'll still believe it. And that makes us look bad. And the church fell into that and has been fighting its way out of that ever since about the 1920s. Here's what we should have done, and it's what we're actually starting to do. Look at the next slide, Jesse. We should have said, even in the 1900s, when it was looking like science was replacing the Bible, we should have said, hey, it doesn't matter. All truth is from God, and science and the Bible will line up. They will not contradict themselves. And if it looks like they are, it's because we've got our scientific facts wrong, or our theories are not quite right. And the more we study, the more we learn, the more we examine truth, we will find that they mesh, that they line up, and that you don't have to make a divide between science and the Bible and biblical truth. And so we didn't quite get out of that until about the 1980s. I think it started in about the 70s. But in the 1980s, the church began to go back to science and say, okay, we've got to help these line up, and we know that they will because God is the God of all truth. So let's look at science again. And they began to find out that science really does support the theory of creationism. The belief that there's a creator, a designer. In fact, the more they study it, the more they find out that the scientific facts fit that theory better than a godless evolutionary theory. I don't have time to go through all of there's just a ton of material on this now since about the 1980s. There's written material, there's all kinds of stuff on the internet. You can go to a place called creation.com. And it talks all about creation theory and creationism and why it should be taught in schools, because it's science. It's so scientific. The people from Answers in Genesis, have you heard of them? The Creation Museum. They're the ones who do the Creation Museum and the Ark Encounter in Kentucky. And there's so much science. It's just amazing. In fact, that stuff is really good and helpful because we can now say, and we should have been able to say it before, that it's okay to believe the Bible because it is supported by science. You can tell your kids that. You can tell your grandkids that. If they go back to school and the teacher presents evolution theory as if it was proven fact, you can still say, but I believe in creation theory because science proves that too. There's just as much or more evidence for creationism and design theory than there is for evolutionary theory. In fact, this is comical, this is ironic. Now that we're in the 2000s, 2018, the evolutionists have become the fundamentalists. They are now saying, we don't care what the science says, we will still believe in evolution because we just can't accept anything else. We cannot accept the idea of a designer or creator, and the only thing left is evolution, and so we will keep it. And we don't care if science can't support it. So they are now falling into the trap of believing a lie. But they don't care because that's all there is left. So let's look at Genesis chapter 1. I'm going to read the whole chapter. How do you like that? Well, I'm going to skip a few verses, okay? Because I want to get through the entire chapter, but it is such a beautiful, elegant description and account of the creation that it really deserves a full reading. So I encourage you to, if you don't have your Bible in front of you right now, be sure and read through this chapter 1 of Genesis. In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. Now the earth was formless and empty. Darkness was over the surface of the deep, and the Spirit of God was hovering over the waters. And God said, let there be light, and there was light. God saw that the light was good, and He separated the light from the darkness. God called the light day, and the darkness He called night. And there was evening, and there was morning, the first day. I skipped a couple of verses in there, but don't worry. Verse 6, and God said, let there be a vault, or an expanse, between the waters that separate water from water. So God made the vault and separated the water under the vault from the water above it. And it was so. God called the vault sky, and there was evening and there was morning the second day. You probably noticed I skipped a couple verses there, but I want you to catch the rhythm of the poetic beauty of this description. And God said, let the water under the sky be gathered into one place, and let dry ground appear. And it was so. Then God said, let the land produce vegetation, seed-bearing plants and trees on the land that bear fruit with seed in it, according to the various kinds. And it was so. And there was evening, and there was morning, the third day. And God said, let there be lights in the vault of the sky to separate the day from the night, and let them serve as signs to mark sacred times and days and years, and let them be lights in the vault of the sky to give light on the earth. And it was so. And I am skipping to verses where the sun and the moon and the stars were these lights. In verse 19, and there was evening and there was morning, the fourth day. And God said, let the water teem with living creatures, and let birds fly above the earth across the vault of the sky. So God created great creatures of the sea, and every living thing with which the water teems, and that moves about in it, according to their kinds. And Tom went out and tried to catch them all, didn't he? Yeah. Tom and Nancy.
That's why he put them there.
That's why he put them there. And every winged bird according to its kind. And God saw that it was good, and so did Tom and Nancy. And there was evening, and there was morning, the fifth day. And God said, let the land produce living creatures according to their kinds, the livestock, the creatures that move along the ground, and the wild animals, which we love, especially with ketchup, right? So, each according to its kind. And it was so. Then God said, let us make mankind in our image, in our likeness, so that they may rule over the fish of the sea, and the birds in the sky, and over the livestock, and all the wild animals, and over all the creatures that move along the ground. So God created mankind in His own image. In the image of God, He created them. Male and female, He created them. And then skipping way down to verse 31, the last verse. God saw all that He had made, and it was very good. And there was evening, and there was morning, the sixth day. Did you catch the rhythm? It's a poem. In fact, most scholars believe that this was written long before Moses. that it was passed down from generation to generation, maybe from Adam and Eve, all the way to Moses. It was memorized and sung as a hymn or as a poem because it is so rhythmical and structured. You know, and God said, "Let there be," and it was so. And there was morning and evening the first day, the second day, the third day. So it's very structured and very poetic all the way down. But the most important thing that I find about it is that it's the best and the most satisfying, intellectually as well as spiritually, the most satisfying explanation of creation, of all that there is around us. How did this all get here? Who put this here? And how did it get there? How did we get here? And what does it all mean? This is still the best description. It's the most satisfying one because with all of secular science, and I'm going to talk about science, but I don't want you to think that science is divorced from biblical truth. Remember? Oh wait, Bible's over here. Right? Bible is divorced from science. Because there are secular scientists, and I'll talk about secular scientists a lot. They are the ones who are having a hard time, even today. They are the fundamentalists who refuse to believe anything that might have to do with the Creator. And so they can't explain the most basic questions of creation. They still can't. Even today, they can't explain how did this all get here? I mean, I will talk about it, okay? I was going to bring up some, but let's start with the first question because I don't want to run out of time. First question is just, this is the most basic one of all. I mean, every kid, every child born is born with this question. Why is there something rather than nothing? Or the kids always say, well, how did this get here? Who created it? Who made it? And you can, they'll usually start with something around you, like, Daddy, who made this car? And so you say, the factory did. Well, who made the parts? And all another factory did. Well, who made the metal and the pieces? Well, we dug them out of the ground. And well, who made the ground? And so eventually you get back to, why is there something rather than nothing? I mean, that's a really good question, isn't it? Why? And scientists can say all they want. Well, the Big Bang is what created the universe. Well, I'm not going to try to say whether or not I believe in the Big Bang theory, although, science really does have a lot of evidence to support it. But the Big Bang theory still doesn't explain why there's something rather than nothing. What was behind the Big Bang? What started it? It says right here, in the beginning, God created something out of nothing. And boom, there was the Big Bang. I don't know, maybe that's what happened. But basically, it's creation out of nothing. The Latin term for that is ex nihilo, which means out of nothing. And it's the best translation of the word in Genesis 1:1, for God created, means that He created out of nothing. Do you know that in the 1920s, when scientists first presented the idea of the Big Bang Theory, secular scientists hated it. They hated the whole theory because it implied that there was a beginning to the universe. And if there was a beginning to the universe, somebody began it. There has to be something behind that beginning. There's cause and effect. It's just logical. It's so logical. I mean, how can you say the Big Bang started it all and then not explain what caused the Big Bang? You've got to go back behind that. And scientists still cannot figure that out. They've tried and they've tried. Jessie and I are on the same page, aren't we, Jessie?
Oh, yes.
We're feeding our inner nerds today, aren't we? So let me bring in some stuff like the next slide. This quote comes directly from Encyclopedia Britannica of 1998, which is, I found it online, the online version of Encyclopedia Britannica has not been revised since 1998, where it says, quote, scientists have yet to determine what prevailed before the Big Bang. They still don't know. Despite great shows like Big Bang Theory. I'm sorry, I don't know if you've ever watched that show or not. It's not a great show, but it's very, I think it's very funny
It's
too.
not actually very scientific.
It is not scientific, and it's definitely not very Christian. But it is hilarious. I'll give you that. But most of you may have heard of another scientist named Stephen Hawking. Look at the next slide. Stephen Hawking, I like him. I've read a lot of his books. He's got several books that are easy to read. So, my inner nerd likes this because, for one thing, I can understand it because I'm not that intellectual. I don't have the physicist training, but he puts it in terms that most people can understand. Well, in books like A Brief History of Time, and his latest one's called The Grand Design, which ironically tries to prove that there is no design. There's no designer, because Stephen Hawking did his best. He desperately wanted to explain what was behind the Big Bang. And he desperately wanted it not to be God. So he tried everything he could come up with to explain what was behind the Big Bang. And his best attempt, if you just want to narrow everything he ever said down to one statement, his statement was basically, there was never nothing. That it always was. The universe is self-existent. That if there was anything before the Big Bang, then that was just another universe. That was just natural laws. Everything that has ever happened is because of natural law, and there was physics before there was physics, is basically what he was saying. And it's really self-contradictory, and he knows it. Well, I should say he knew it. He died just a few months ago.
He knows the truth now.
Yeah, that's pretty much true. But he desperately tried to say that there was no God, and there was nothing behind the Big Bang. And what he basically said is, well, why is there something instead of nothing? His answer is, because.
For a smart man, he's very stupid.
Every parent has used that answer, haven't you? Just because. I don't know. Just because. That was his answer. That was his best answer. It just was. That is not satisfying. I don't know about you, but it doesn't satisfy me.
In the term of because I said so.
Because I said so. Yeah, that's kind of what he did.
Because I said so.
That's what he was saying.
The sad part is a lot of people will take that as basically scientific fact.
He said it in a very
so it must
scientific way. He used a lot of scientific jargon, but people who have analyzed it, and again, you can go on creation.com, and they've got this whole article about Stephen Hawking, and even the critics who read his latest book on design said, it's nonsense, you can't understand it. Not because it's too scientific, it's because it logically doesn't make sense. He's basically saying there's physics before there was physics. And that's not possible. And so they caught him quite a bit on making arguments. By the way, the book Grand Design failed miserably because they saw right through it.
The reviews were terrible.
The reviews were terrible, yeah. His best book was A Brief History of Time.
It's kind of like saying what came first, the chicken or the egg, and you answer yes.
Yeah, it was extremely unsatisfying. Okay, look at the second question. I want to get through this. So, why is there order instead of chaos? Okay, now we've got something, but why is this something so beautiful, so organized, so well designed? There's no other way to put it. Why is there order instead of chaos? Well, I can tell you why there's order instead of chaos. It's because my kids are moving out and going to college, and now our house has order for the first time instead of chaos.
They come back.
Yeah, I know. They'll come back and bring the chaos back. But again, even a child can understand this argument, can understand the argument for design, because a child knows that if he finds a quarter on the beach, if you go over to Lake Michigan and you're walking around, your toes catch something and you dig it up and there's something shiny, so you pick it up, it's a quarter. Now, evolutionary science would have you believe that over millions of years, through the lake action of Lake Michigan and all the ores and the minerals that were in the water and in the sand, and over millions of years of this churning action and wind and waves, it polished that piece of metal and it made it perfectly round, and somehow the wind kind of etched in those numbers and those images and it's perfectly symmetrical on both sides, and given enough time, that could randomly happen. Now even a child is going to say, no, it can't.
Daddy, do this a quarter.
Yeah. The kid will say, no, that's not, that didn't appear there randomly. Somebody made that quarter. It was designed. It was created. The same argument applies to our universe. Why are there planets? Why are there stars? Why are there solar systems instead of random dust? I mean, if you go back to the Big Bang Theory, and if you believe it, then there shouldn't be planets. There should be. Well, what do you get when you blow something up? Do you get order or do you get chaos?
You don't get perfectly round object.
No.
Have you ever listened to Louis Giglio?
No.
Oh, I gotta get some tapes to you. He's a pastor that talks about all this stuff and shows things out in space that have God's handiwork on it.
Yeah, it's amazing.
The guy, he gets stuff from NASA and everything,
Yeah.
and
Good.
I'll get it to you.
There is so much out there. So much.
And now
That
they're
is
able to-
not presented to our kids. It's not presented in our schools or universities even.
And their newest addition to this theory is not only a large amount of time is needed, you need an infinite number of universes because one of them got it right.
Yeah, that's another multiverse theory, is that there's multiple universes.
That's how they get around the logical problem is infinite universes. One of them got it right. We just happen to be that one.
There's a lot of logical flaws in that argument too. But this one is just so natural and so easy. I think even a kid can understand this. And a kid going back to school can tell his teacher, or can ask these questions. Why is there something instead of nothing? And why is there order instead of chaos? And science still does not know why. And even scientists are very secular scientists. There are a lot of Christian scientists now that are saying, yeah, this is obvious, this is easy. But even the secular ones are looking at what's called the fine-tuning of the universe. And they're looking at it and they're baffled, and they say there's no other way to explain why this is so perfectly set up other than it must have been designed. It's like finding a quarter on a beach. Look at the next slide. These are just a couple of examples that feed your inner nerd too. Maybe it'll help you a little bit. But I got this off of creation.com. It says that there's a perfect magnetic force that binds electrons and protons. You know, subatomic materials, electrons and protons. Do you remember biology, chemistry? We had to study all these electrons and protons. And they stick together because of a magnetic force, which scientists still don't understand how this got there.
I think they call it the weak force.
The weak force.
I think that's a weak one, yeah.
Yeah, it is. But it is perfect. Because if this force was stronger or weaker, there would only exist a few basic unstable elements in the universe. It would be total dust or gas, basically. We'd have helium, we'd have hydrogen, and that's about it. because even the atoms would not stick together to form more complex elements. It wouldn't happen. And then there's the ratio of electron to proton mass. Now this I found interesting too. They didn't know this when I was in school. They couldn't weigh electrons and protons. But they found now that they have a certain mass, they have a certain weight, and that ratio is exactly 1 to 1,836. And probably the decimal goes on even farther. But if that was just slightly off by a little bit, molecules would never form. And we would have no water, we'd have no elements, we'd have no planets or stars or anything if this was off by just a little bit. So scientists, even atheistic scientists, have looked at this and said, there's no other way to explain this. Look at the next quote. This is a quote from Sir Fred Hoyle, who was an atheistic scientist. And he looked at all this and he says, common sense interpretation of the facts is that a super intelligence has monkeyed with physics. I like that. I don't know if he did that on purpose as a pun or not, but has monkeyed with physics as well as chemistry and biology, and there are no blind forces in nature. This is ironic because Sir Fred Hoyle was a physicist in the early 20s and later, and he totally rejected the Big Bang Theory because he was an atheist and he could not accept the idea that it started. And so he coined the phrase Big Bang to kind of put it down as a derogatory term, and it caught on. And he said it can't be true because he didn't want there to be an intelligent designer. But the more he studied it, and then he died just recently in 2001, believing in intelligent design. I don't think he ever became a Christian, but he still could not turn down the idea that there had to be some kind of super intelligent designer that explains the universe. So why is there order instead of chaos? The third question, this one I'll go really quick on this one. Why is there life instead of just rocks and dirt? Okay, you got something instead of nothing. Then you've got order instead of chaos. So you've got planets and you've got systems, but there still doesn't have to be life. Every planet in the universe could be like Mars, just rocks and dirt.
In fact, that's our best, science's best explanation is there's life on Earth and that's it. We haven't found anything else.
Still
And there
haven't found
should be.
There should be.
There should be tons of life everywhere in the galaxy.
Because they believe that life naturally
Yeah.
comes into being
And
by
this
some
is it.
force that they still can't explain.
Yeah, this is it. This is all we have.
Now
And
this theory was the one they taught me when I was a kid. So this theory is over 50 years old. And it's still their best one. Their best shot. That there was just this primordial soup. I wish you could read all the fine print on this label. It's very funny. Like it says a quick meal in 4.5 billion years. And quick and easy directions, mixed soup, one ocean of water, and things like that. It's very funny. But it's still their best theory, and it doesn't make sense. Again, this physicist, Fred Hoyle, came up with this. Look at the next slide. He said that the chance, and mathematicians have been over this too, so this is very, very accurate. The chance of obtaining the simplest living cell out of a primordial soup is 1 in 10 to the 40,000s. 40,000? That's a 1 with 40,000 zeros. It's a number that we don't even have a name for, it's so big. That's the chance that it could happen randomly, like a quarter on a beach. And the number of known atoms in the universe is 10 to the 80th. They've actually figured this, they know this, just based on mass and protons and atoms and things. They know that there's 1 with 80 zeros. Again, it's a number too big to really name. But the point is that if the entire universe was a bowl of primordial soup, life still could not happen by chance. It wouldn't happen. You can't do it. Billions and billions of years would not be enough to make it happen simply by chance. And so they just have to say, well, it had to have come from somewhere. Look at the next slide. Here's the conclusion. The only satisfying answers that I have ever found, that I believe science will ever find, is creationism, design theory, which comes directly from Genesis 1. Why is there something instead of nothing? Well, God is behind the Big Bang, if that's what started it. Why is there order instead of chaos? It's not just because your kids went away to college. It's because there's a designer in the universe. Why is there life instead of just dust? Because God created life. God is life. Jesus said, I am the way and the truth and the life. So that's the only possible explanation. Okay, I hope that fed your inner nerd today. I had fun with this type of thing. So we're going to go on with it a little bit next week too, with a slightly different angle. But I do want to continue talking about it. So.
I'm going to get you those tapes.
Okay, so
You might even use some of them.
yeah,
They're really cool.
let's stand and pray. Lord, we do thank you for your great creation. We do look at the creation and we do see your hand, and it is just so obvious to us. But to know that even scientific truth backs up what your Bible says, what your word says, gives us confidence too, and helps us to be able to help other people who are looking for the answers and looking for, why are we here and what's it all about. So help us to engage our world, help us to understand it, and to help people who have not seen these truths and not understood them, basically because of our society and our educational systems, and people who just can't accept the idea of a designer or creator. We know who you are, and we thank you for that. We ask you to go with us this week, in Jesus' name.